So with that, what we're going to do now is we're going to move into a second part of this session where we are going to be doing what we call an unconference. And I will again share my screen and explain to you all how that's going to work. So let's see if I can do this properly. All right, so can I get a nod from one of the panelists? Do you see my slides? Yes, okay, excellent. Right, so what is an unconference and how does it work? What have you all gotten yourselves into? Well, this is a way for the audience and the panelists to engage. We're gonna do a quick session where we gather some topics from you, the audience. It's a chance for you to reflect on what you've heard in the last section and pose topics you're keen to talk about. We've also asked the panelists themselves to think about topics they'd like to discuss. We'll pop them up on the board. You'll see it's quite easy. We'll do it as we go. And then we're going to be setting up breakout rooms, giving you the chance to choose which topic you would like to discuss and saving the last 5 minutes to wrap up and reflect as a group. So what do we mean by topics? It could be anything, you know, a challenge that you heard about that you want to explore collaboratively with your peers here today. It could be, you know, an idea you've been mulling around about a project. It could be maybe you just want to share and exchange information, you know, sharing examples of legal tech collaborations or health tech projects or anything like that. So it's an open opportunity. We're open to any ideas. There are no bad ideas, and it's really what you're interested in talking about today. So with that, I actually need to change, I think, how I'm sharing the screen. Apologies, it's not going to work. I'm going to try that one more time. And I am going to ask you all if you would like to suggest any topics for the discussion today. So if you're here in the room, you can either pop a suggestion into the chat box or unmute yourself and shout it out. And I would just give you 1 minute to reflect on that and say, is there anything the people in the room would like to talk about today? Any volunteers, any ideas? This is where there's a little bit of uncomfort while we unmute ourselves and think about how we might want to engage with the audience today. Any suggestions for topics? Dead air. David Coombe, I can see that you're in the room with us today. Are you here, David?
I am, sorry. It took me a while to unmute myself.
No. Just wondering, David, have you heard anything from the speakers today? Any challenges, questions, topics you'd be interested to explore in a breakout room?
I think I guess one of the issues that has come up, and it's quite high level, is that there has been quite a bit of comment about what we would want government to do for us in an innovation strategy. That was in the first session, but also, you know, some of the learnings from these deep dives is, you know, what we need from the policy framework, and that is true and essential. And it's always been a part of STEM tech transfer, so there's nothing sort of unusual about that. There's no special pleading there from social sciences, but I would be interested in looking at, you know, trying to think what we can do in the absence of any policy framework, essentially.
Thank you, David. And we also have a suggestion from Jane again. Thank you, Jane. I'm gonna, the numbering's gone off there, pop that in there. Jane has suggested we talk about scaling local success across regional and national geographies. Jane, do you want to tell us a little bit more about what you mean by that?
Hi, Britta. Well, it's just something I guess it was touched on a bit in the opening plenary session this morning, and something I was discussing with an academic yesterday. And, you know, how you go in and you do that point intervention and you've built trust with a local group or a local organization or a number of organizations, and then how that might be scaled once you've got to the end of the project perhaps, and you have something that has worked, but how you can look about spreading that. So I know, for instance, in the work that many of us did with the LEPs over the last couple of years, the ESRC and BAYS were quite keen for those learnings and interventions to be diffused at scale. So I think, just trying to think about this and what the challenges and opportunities are there.
Thank you, Jane. Jane, would you, if we set up a breakout room, is that something you would go into that room and be willing to chat more with others about that?
Yep, sure.
Great. We have another suggestion here from Ian Larkham. Ian, welcome to this session. You've suggested we talk about constraints on academics' time versus responsiveness and agility of business. Anything in particular that question, any particular interest in that question?
Hi, thank you for taking that question. I think it's more about how business ready engagement is and research opportunities are, and how do you manage the fact that academics are obviously flat out with teaching, and then research and engagement becomes like a third priority, and yet with a business you're probably looking at as being a higher priority for them. And so you have this kind of disconnect between the responsiveness of a business versus the time available for academics to work on it. So any insight as to how people are managing that would be interesting.
Fantastic, thank you. Well, I think that's plenty of topics now. We've also got 3 up there on the screen, which is challenges. So what are the remaining challenges to supporting academics and businesses to engage in all of these sectors? Number 2, opportunities. What great examples do we have of working together, and where do those opportunities lie? Adam Winship, are you still here? Oh, we've lost Adam. I was going to say that links to his question earlier. Comparing, contrasting. So what differences have we seen in engagement with these different sectors? Right, so with that, I think we're just about ready to start. Jeannie, may I ask if you've got these 6 breakout rooms ready?
Yes, we've got breakout rooms ready.
Okay, great. So what's going to happen next, everybody, is you are shortly going to see a prompt on the screen. You're going to be offered the chance to join any of these 6 rooms. It's up to you. Select the topic of your choice and join. If you get in there and you want to swap, you're welcome to. But they won't be very long. You're only going to have about 10, 15 minutes in the breakout room to chat, and then we'll have a quick recap at the end. So I'll keep this slide up on the screen so you can be reminded what the topics are. And Jeannie, could I ask you to open those breakout rooms now? I think we've got everybody joining us back here in the main room. Thank you everyone for participating in that experiment. I hope that was a useful discussion that you guys had. I just wanted to give you all a chance, as we are back in the room together, to share any closing thoughts, anything that you uncovered, anything that struck you in your group discussions, and just open that up to the floor. Is there anyone that wants to reflect and share back to the group? Any of our speakers, perhaps, if not the attendees?
Perhaps. Maybe a slightly meta point about the nature of this research in general, which John, who was also in my breakout room, nodded in agreement with, and that was that I endeavoured to tell all sorts of excellent, some good news stories about the value of these types of engagements, and I was able to do that. But I was more able to highlight some of the challenges that affect meaningful engagement beyond the academy, and some of the things which inhibit that engagement and the impact of it, than I was all of the great things that came from it. So I think that whilst it's really good that we can talk about some of the success stories, there are kind of structural issues within universities which really limit the value and the kind of potential of research engagement, certainly in the creative industries.
Thanks. Anyone else would like to share any closing thoughts or words from the speakers, if not the audience?
think one thing that came up in our room was about maybe thinking differently and about how actually quite often industry will talk about doing outreach activities, and actually that can facilitate really good citizen kind of science that they might not realize was a potential for research. But also in terms of who we're engaging with to work, that as well as kind of industry, there are other kind of wider organizations in terms of social kind of county councils or health organizations that actually offer other opportunities to really engage social science in that, and think a bit differently as well about funding, that it isn't always the kind of the obvious UKRI kind of approaches, but there are trusts and charitable organizations out there that will fund some of them.
Great, thank you, Rachel. Well, this is kind of the point where we are at the end of our hour and a half together. I hope that you all enjoyed this as much as I did. Really interesting to hear from these projects. I can't wait to read the reports. Reminder, if you weren't here at the start, that you can keep finding out more about Aspects funded projects. We're posting resources as they are available. You can also read the learning report from last year, which has a recap of last year's activities. There will be another one coming soon. And you can sign up for the newsletter if you want to keep posted on what's coming out of these projects. Last but not least, a big thank you again to all of our speakers. If you'd like to keep in touch with any of them, take a snapshot of this screen. They're welcome hearing from you all. So feel free to reach out, and thank you again. And I hope you enjoy the rest of the conference today. Thank you, everybody, and we'll see you today and tomorrow at the other sessions. Take care.